Hi, Gillian. Such a pleasure to chat with you. I thought the film was it's very powerful and moving.
Oh, thank you.
So I want to start, if you can give us an idea of the power of the church in Ireland in the 1980s, because you really take us into that world.
Oh gosh, I mean, I would advise people to go and see the film. I don't know if I'll be able to. That's a big subject to try and fit into a brief interview. It was a very different time in Ireland. It was a very, very different time in the 1980s, and the church controlled education. The church controlled health. These Magdalene laundries existed where women were incarcerated and made to work, and then their labor was monetized, and they were just basically taken out of society, sometimes for just being too attractive. So it's very hard to try and explain how painful it is, that period in our history. They existed from 1922 until right up until 1996, and and I think when you look at the Ireland that we have now, where it's so socially progressive and we've come such a long way, yet this our story in our film happened in 1985, so it's really, really recent history.
True, you pitched this to Matt Damon in the middle of the night on an Oppenheimer shoot.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, that is true. There isn't much sitting around on Chris Nolan's sets generally, but this night we were waiting for weather or rain machines or whatever it was, and he was telling me about Artist Equity, this company, studio effectively, that he'd set up with Ben Affleck, and I said, well, I happen to have a script. And then I just gave it to him, and he connected with it, and then he gave it to Ben Affleck, and it happened really, really quickly.
And he helped finance this. He helped this
They
come to
financed it. Yes, they financed it. Yeah. And
fantastic.
they were amazing partners to work with.
When Bill wakes up in the middle of the night and you have those haunting scenes with just him looking out. What's happening there? What is he working through?
Oh, again, that's a big question. My feeling is I tried not to play him as a hero. I tried to play him as a man who's in the middle of this storm, this emotional kind of storm. There's all this stuff that he hasn't dealt with from his childhood and his mother and his father. And then there's this, he's got five daughters. And so he's like struggling with the idea of raising five women in this society. And then there's the stuff that he encounters in the convent. So, and a lot of that happens to men in their middle age, right? The stuff that you're trying to keep down just keeps bubbling up, and it just can hit you really with a wallop in middle age. So it feels to me like he's kind of imploding emotionally, and but luckily it drives him towards this act of charity, this act of kindness, because I think really, um, in story terms, or sort of in emotional terms, he's rescuing his own mother, really.
Oh, what a beautiful way of putting it.
Yeah.
I saw him in this journey and really kind of figuring out his path, but I didn't think of it almost as that act of charity for his own mother. That's lovely. But I have to ask you, I mean, after like you ran a marathon with Oppenheimer, and then you
Mm.
finally recover from being on a Christopher Nolan movie, and then you sign up for another gauntlet. Like, what was it like? I mean, this is another emotionally heavy journey that must have really asked a lot of you.
Um, yeah, they're the kind of characters I love. They're the kind of stories I'm attracted to. I like, characters that are under an awful lot of pressure. I like that part of the psyche that is difficult to shine a light into generally, that the stuff that we're all carrying around all of the time, but we never really talk about it. And again, I find art is a place that you can explore that in an interesting way. I mean, it was a completely different character in every single possible way to Oppenheimer, yet people have drawn parallels. And I suppose it's something to do with this sort of immutability of the guilt or something that both characters have in a strange way, in a tiny sort of parochial way in this film, and in a huge sort of worldwide way in Oppenheimer. But that's more for, I think, for journalists and for film nerds to make the
Yeah.
connection. For me, I have no strategy or like plan when it comes to characters. It's just trying to find the best stories. And to me, this was like a really, really compelling story about a really dark time in Irish history. But it's also written by a woman about a man in a world full of women, and that to me was really interesting. So there was many, many things, many, many layers to a seemingly simple story.
Talk to me briefly about that remarkable scene with Emily as the head nun. Like, because what she's saying seems almost pedantic, but also it's you're intimidated.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's entirely banal what you're saying. They're talking about tea and the weather and stuff like that, but it's the space between the lines and it's the subtext is what it's important. So you need one of the best actors in the world really to be able to portray that. And she's been one of my favorites since Breaking the Waves, and like Punch Drunk Love is one of my favorite films of all time. And so I actually had a dream that it should be Emily Watson. That kind of weird place between like sleeping and waking, then I was like, it has to be Emily. So we called her and we sent her the text, and she said yes. Which that was one of my favorite days on a film set, really making that scene.
Before I let you go, I mentioned in the opposite we were chatting with you. You have to give us a sense of what's happening with this Peaky Blinders project that is finally coming to fruition, if you don't mind.
Oh, well, I'm shooting it right now. I
You
mean,
are.
yeah, I should actually be in bed when I'm talking to you guys. uh, um, yeah, we're shooting right now.
What do you have in store, sir?
I can't tell you, but I can tell you I'm very excited about it. And we've got an amazing cast, an amazing director, and we've been working on the script for a long time. And I think it's really, it's we've it's deserving of the final act of the Peaky Blinders story, I think.
Did you always know there would be one more installment, or was it unsure until you found the right story?
I think for me. I always said if there was more stories to tell, I'll be there. But we needed to find the right story. But Stephen Knight is a gifted writer, and he wrote the whole 36 hours of television on the show. So now he's written the feature film, and yeah, it's going great.